And you know, like how some of the other skulls have like special markings or pieces coming out of it?
Check
Yeah,
the shelf.
Yeah, I checked the shelf. They're not there.
Sometimes you can drop them inside of
Oh,
each
no,
other.
no, no, here it is, I found it. Oh, a rival player! Help! There's a rival player hiding on our ship!
What?
There's a rival player hiding on our ship.
From where?
There was a tuck lord on our boat. We don't even have...
Wait.
Dude, we got like 2 skulls. There's nothing to steal.
Hey, what's up everyone? In this episode of Play Like a Pro, I want to talk about how to get better with different weapons in the game. This video was inspired by a comment I got recently about how to aim better, so I want to address that with some other stuff in this video. So let's start off talking about your sword. The sword is my favorite weapon. It really is the only weapon that stands out compared to other games. Other games, you know, they have pistols and snipers and shotguns. Not many games have a sword, and the sword combat feels pretty good. It could always be better in Sea of Thieves, but what we have now, it's really fun to play with a sword. Swords are great not only for attacking, but also mobility. Now, I haven't really officially talked about it in a video, how to do it, but if you've watched any of my streams or gameplay or whatever, you've seen me do it a bunch of times. So now we're gonna go look at how to do a sword lunge properly. Alright, so you can do a sword lunge basically anywhere, but when you're practicing, it's best to do it over the water. If you do it on land, what's gonna happen is you're gonna jump and then you're gonna stop, and you won't be able to move for a second. Whereas when you go in water, you'll keep moving, and then you'll be able to move your character again after that. Kind of think of it as like your character is stunned after doing a lunge. So for this, I'm going to talk about it from my perspective, which I play on a controller. Obviously, whatever you use for keyboard and mouse is, you know, the same thing. So for me, holding right trigger is what does the attack and a lunge. But you see how like we didn't go anywhere? And it kind of just stayed right there? That's fine for when you're fighting skeletons, but not so much for mobility. Now there's a trick to this, and it takes a bit of practice, but it's not too hard to figure out. If you hold left trigger, which is the blocking button, this is also whatever you use for aiming other guns, if you're on keyboard and mouse. You can see that we can still move around, but we're kind of moving around a bit more slowly. If we're holding blocking, at the same time we can go into our sword lunge, and we can lunge into the water. That one wasn't too good, to be honest. I'll show you another one in a second. If you time it right, you can also jump over things like this, and you just have to get good at it. It takes a bit of practice, but once you get the hang of it, you can travel really fast, and it's really helpful when you're going to try to board someone, or fighting, or whatever. Another random tip, if you're going into a sword lunge, you can grab onto anything that lets you interact with it, and that will cancel the lunge, meaning you won't get stuck. Because if I do a lunge right here, you see how I'm stuck and I can't move for a bit? That's enough time for someone to come up and either slash you to death or shoot you to death. However, if I'm in a lunge and I miss my target, I can quickly hit X, grab onto the cannon, and then go back to attacking. The last tip I want to leave y'all with is more of just a suggestion. If you want to practice the sword lunge like we talked about while sailing, what I typically like to do, at least on a sloop, is stand on the canopy up here and aim to land on that front beam. And then you just go back and forth and try. You could land on the steps or somewhere. If you can land on the anchor, that's pretty impressive, but probably won't be able to. Land right here, that's pretty much where you want to aim for. But just going back and forth will help you practice with the jumping and other stuff. Another way to practice both sword lunging and boarding a ship is this. So what you want to do is you get onto this front beam here, and you go ahead and do your sword lunge. Jump into the water, and then you want to swim up quickly. You can practice your sword lunge by doing that, and then you can practice boarding by trying to grab onto your own ladder. This is something I typically do if I have the ship just going straight in a direction and I don't really need to change that up at all. This is something that can really help you get better both at boarding and sword lunging, because you can actually go into the water, which is when you're typically gonna sword lunge in the future. Next, let's talk about using the sword to fight. Now there's two different ways that the sword can be used. You can either do a sword lunge, which we just talked about. Obviously in a regular attack you wouldn't want to do the blocking usually. You can do that of course, but it takes a little bit more time than just holding the right trigger and lunging at them. The regular attack though is a 3-hit attack. So what will happen is you hit your sword and go slash slash slash, and then it'll take a pause. That's not great because usually if someone, is using another weapon, they can get you after that 3rd slash. So for me, when I'm playing, I typically don't like to do a sword lunge too often unless there's a group of enemies that I can hit at once. So say maybe you board a ship and several of them are at the cannons and they don't see you get on, you could sword lunge through them and hit a couple of them off. I should also mention that at this moment that when you sword lunge someone, it knocks the other person back as well, giving them damage, similar to the effect a blunderbuss gives. Now, I typically go a different route where I'll hop on and I'll use the sword and I'll slash at them while jumping around them. This makes it hard for them to keep track of me, and I can just bounce around and attack and they won't really be able to do anything about it. Obviously you have to figure out what's best for your playstyle, but if you're the type that wants to use a sword, I'd recommend this strategy or get really good with the sword lunge. The sword lunge does a lot more damage than a regular sword slash, of course. Either way works. Another good combo is you do a sword slash and then a sword lunge. That way you can get them out right after that. When using a sword, I find you don't want to go below deck. As we talked about before, you can hit the side of the wood right here, and this happens on every ship. I have had so many times where I'll be attacking someone, I'll hit the first hit, but it won't register the hit if they're here. It will just count me hitting the wall, and then that leaves me open to get hit with a blunderbuss or something else. So what I'd recommend is always try to have them above deck if you want to use a sword. You can do this by just jumping around. If you're on their ship, you can just maybe use a firebomb, throw that down. They'll eventually want to come up and attack you. Don't fall for the trap of them hiding down below and baiting you to come down. Now let's say they're on your ship and they're below deck. There's really not much you can do other than go down and attack them, because it's not like you can really get your ship moving with them down there. At any point they could come up and surprise attack you at the wheel. What I'd recommend is you just try to go down there quick, and typically people when they're hiding, they hide either right here or they'll hide right here. So what I'd recommend is you come through this way and then you attack. If you notice, like, this side is a bit more open where you can have more room to hit before you hit this wall. If you come in on the right side, you're going to hit that right side wall before you hit the person that's back here. Obviously this is going to be different on different types of ships, but since the sword always hits from the right going to the left, it's always better to go to the left than go to the right. So another ability that the sword has is with the blocking, and you're able to kind of dodge around with that block, and it's useful if you're fighting someone else that's using a sword as well. So what you want to do is you go ahead and get into your block and you hold that and you just move in a direction and you jump at the same time. So if you do this, you can kind of jump around kind of like a little frog, leapfrogging around. This is not something I typically do that often, as I find just jumping over someone and then attacking like that is a lot more effective. However, if say they're repeatedly hitting you and you have to keep blocking, then that would be a situation when holding that block button while jumping over would be useful. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about pistols. Pistols are another one of my favorite weapons in the game. This is what I typically use in combination with the sword, and there's a few tricks that you can use to help get better aiming with it. So first, let's talk about what kind of model pistol you want. The model of the pistol is really important because if you get one that is very bulky looking or hard to aim with, then you're gonna do significantly worse than someone that has a better pistol. Now, I'd recommend you try out different types of pistols, but if you want to know which one I tend to use, I like to use this ebony flintlock one. The reason I like it is because it's very flat and then it has a sight at the end. This helps a lot for me with aiming, and if you don't have this pistol, because this pistol is a little bit more exclusive, I have a few more options that you can use. So the Aristocrat pistol is one that I use a lot. Sometimes I use it more than an ebon pistol. The reason I like this one is the white color of it helps it stand out more on your screen than the dark black one of the ebon one. So in dark situations, it's a lot easier for you to see your gun and what direction it's going to go in. However, even if you use a darker version of this, it still works. The reason I like the Aristocrat pistol and would recommend it is it's basically the same model as the ebon pistol, which is from the Obsidian set. And the only thing that's different about it is it's a different color. Another one I can recommend is the Silverblade flintlock pistol. This one you unlock from the Insider program. So if you're an Insider, you probably already have this. If not, you can get it for free just by doing the Insider things. But if you haven't done the Insider, I would recommend just going for the Aristocrat pistol, as you can get it right now in the Outpost shop. I believe it's for the balloons though, so I don't know how much it is, but that's something that we look forward to. Anything with this kind of model you should be fine with, so you probably can find other ones in the Outpost shop that maybe are a bit more designed to what you like. Alright, let's talk about aiming. Aiming is something that takes a lot of practice and skill to do, and honestly when going into this video I wasn't really sure how to approach this topic, but I really wanted to make a video for the people that have been wanting this from me. So what I typically like to do when I'm using the pistol is I aim for the chest. Now some people would say, oh, you should always aim for the head. I don't know if there's a damage multiplier in Sea of Thieves for it. I've never been able to test that out. If there is, you guys can let me know in the comments down below. But for me, I always aim for the chest because if I'm a little bit lower, I'll still hit like the legs and stuff. If I'm too high, I'll hit the head. Usually aiming for the center of the person is the best strategy because you're most likely to hit them. I find it's easiest to hit someone with a pistol if they're underwater. So if I'm on a ship and it's anchored and stuff, I would try to lure my opponent into the water so I can fight them. Because a sword, sometimes you can get stuck. Sometimes the sword will hit against a wall or something when you're either at an outpost maybe fighting, or usually you're on a ship fighting down below deck. The sword can hit the wall and then it won't count as a hit against the opponent, which gives them an opportunity to either shoot you or use a sword on you instead. You can of course use the pistol on land. I just find it a bit harder because people can jump around and other stuff. So I would recommend trying to aim for the center of a person's body and also trying to lure them into the water if you're trying to do the best with the pistol. When you're fighting underwater, if you don't get that first hit, you want to try to move around a lot so that they don't hit you. If they hit you, you want to try to immediately eat food. Because if they kill you, then there's nothing you can do. Now, one of two things is going to happen. Either one, you're going to run out of food, or two, they're going to run out of ammo. Or, you know, worst case scenario, they're double gunning and they just shoot you twice before you can even heal. There's nothing you can really do to stop that. However, let's say they're playing normally and they just have like a sword and maybe a sniper or a pistol. You eat, you heal, and then you try to shoot at them. After you shoot at them, Either you could do a blunder bomb at them, or you just take another shot and you hope that either they don't have enough food or they just are trying to shoot at you first. Whoever is the better shot is usually the person that's going to win out fighting underwater, which is why I typically like to get my opponents down below. Whereas when you're fighting on land, it's a lot harder to hit people, and the person that with the best aim isn't always the one that's going to come out on top. Another suggestion I would recommend is to practice a lot. The way I would practice is you come to an outpost. I prefer plunder outpost here. It used to be a lot easier to hit this target before the new update came and the plant life was grown over here, but you could still practice on this target, and when you shoot it, it will make a indentation on the target and you can see where your shot landed. So what I would recommend is maybe either go float on the water a bit from far away and try to shoot so that there's a bit of movement, or maybe try to run and quickly shoot, because if you're just standing still you should be able to hit the shot, but if you're moving around and stuff like how you would be in an actual encounter, that will give you a lot more practice in game. Now let's say you're sailing on the seas, you're doing a voyage, or you're looking for opponents and you want to practice while sailing, you don't want to go to an outpost. Then what I would recommend is using the bell on your ship. This is something I do a lot, and this is how I practiced in the past. So what you're gonna do is when you hit the bell on your ship, it will make a ding sound like it just did, and that's how you know you hit it. The nice thing is when you're sailing, the waves will be rocking and stuff, so you'll kind of get more of an accurate feeling of how to shoot because you won't be able to really hold it still, so you're going to have to be the one that corrects it. Alright, that's all I have to talk about with pistols. To summarize, you always want to aim for the center of a person. You want to aim for that chest area. That's how you're going to be the most successful with aiming. You also want to try to lure them into the water. If the video isn't up yet, there is another video we're going to have that talks about the best cases to use blunder bombs and fire bombs. I recommend looking at that video because it goes a lot with how to use these other weapons. And what we talked about in that video was sometimes it's really good to use the blunder bomb underwater, and if you can get someone down there, you throw a blunder bomb at them and then you quickly shoot them with your pistol and that will instantly kill them. And then if you want to practice with the pistol, you can also do it on the ship by trying to shoot at the bell. I'd recommend doing different positions on the ship and doing it on the beam that we're on right here. Every ship has this, so you just have to find it on yours. Or you can do it on an outpost at one of the targets. The targets are always on the armory buildings where you can buy weapons and stuff. You'll just see it on the side somewhere. It's pretty noticeable once you find that building. But with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to talking about snipers. So the sniper, otherwise known as the Eye of Reach, is not a weapon I typically use that often, but I will occasionally use it. I find it very useful when fighting monsters in the seas like krakens and megalodons, as it does more damage than a pistol. For me, I typically don't use the sniper too often though because of how slow the reload is. I really just don't like the aiming. A lot of people can do the quick scope thing, or they won't even use the scope, they'll just hit it, you either put on like a piece of tape on their screen where it's supposed to hit. You can do all of those things. I don't really find that too fun, to be honest. I think it takes a little bit of the challenge away. But of course, if you want to use a sniper, you can always do that. There are some really great players in Sea of Thieves that use a sniper, so I know it's definitely possible for any of you to do that. I would say the sniper and the pistol, the tips I have are very similar. If you can bring them out into the water, it's a lot easier to shoot the sniper at them while they're in the water. And if you're fighting someone with the pistol, you're more likely to win because sniper does more damage. But you have to actually be able to hit your shot because the pistol obviously reloads faster. Again, just like the pistol, I would also recommend aiming for the center of the body, but you can also aim for the head if you're really good with your shots. It really is more on you the more you practice. I would say if you're just starting out using it, aim for the center of the body, as it's the most reliable spot to hit. But there's not much else for me to say on snipers. I would say my tips for pistols basically applies to the sniper as well. So let's go ahead and move on to the blunderbuss. Alright, so the blunderbuss is not a weapon I'm too big a fan on, but there is a couple use cases that I find them best for. So the blunderbuss is basically like a shotgun with a knockback effect. When you shoot a player with it, it will knock them backwards, typically. And this is really good for if someone's trying to climb aboard your ship. You can shoot them off the ladder and knock them back so that they can't re-climb up. The blunderbuss, however, can be tricky to use, especially for new players, because you need to get close enough to the person for any real damage to take effect on them. If you're not close enough, it's barely going to do anything to them. So the only times I typically use a blunderbuss is when I know I'm going to be primarily fighting on the ship. So let's say I'm in a losing battle where someone is on my ship trying to spawn kill me. I would go ahead and switch my weapon from a pistol to a blunderbuss because I know that they're likely going to be on the ship, and if I can get that blunderbuss and get that one hit shot on them, then they're dead. You'll typically see a lot of players use a combination of blunderbuss and sniper. It's really annoying to go up against those players. I really don't know how to tell you to take on them other than maybe copy what they're doing or try to be more clever than them. Use other resources like blunder bombs and fire bombs to your advantage. Alright, that's all I have to talk about with the blunderbuss. I'd really only recommend this weapon if you're in close quarters combat or someone's trying to board your ship and you want to use that to get them off instead of, say, a blunder bomb or a sword. I don't really know a great way to practice with this other than maybe going in the arena and playing a lot, as you can't really use the targets like you would use it with the sniper or the pistol. Alright, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. I hope maybe you learned something from this. Maybe if you're a new player or an old player, hopefully there was something that you could have gained from this video. If you have more questions about this topic, let me know in the comments. I'll either reply with an answer to it if I can answer like that. If not, I'll make another video in the future, and maybe I'll take all the questions together and make a part 2 of this video. That's it for today. There's another episode of Play Like a Pro next week, so stay tuned for that. But until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all later. Bye, y'all.